and welcome to Charlotte Talks Transformers, where we'll be taking a look at Transformers Animated Season 2, Episode 1. We're back to the beginning here with Episode 1. This episode, lot to sort of diffuse here because a lot happened. This episode was called The Elite Guard, so as you might expect, we got our first real taste of Cybertron, Ultra Magus, and who else? I can't remember. Right, Ultra Magus, Jazz, and Sentinel Prime show up on Earth in a massive ship and basically proceed to be super awesome, except for Sentinel Prime. Sentinel Prime continues to be, as we've seen in other episodes, not a great person. In fact, he was butting heads with Optimus Prime quite a bit this episode, in that he seems to think that Optimus Prime is lesser than him, and this could be because of his past as like a bit of a washout and this and that, but I'm getting ahead of myself. This episode kind of starts where we now know that Professor Sumdac is gone and no one knows where he is, and so Sari is actually running the company, which is, okay, they handled it in an okay way, because at the start I was like, oh my goodness, not only does she now have the power of the Allspark, but she's like CEO of Sumdac Industries. This fucking kid's gonna be insufferable.
Shares dropped 40 points.
Yeah, shares must have dropped. But anyway, she was talking with one of the board members, and the board member was like, I don't know if we can really trust a child to run this industry that we have here. And she's all like, as long as the name Sumdac is on this company, I will run this joint, blah, 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 right? And, like, props to a 9-year-old for, like, standing her ground, but he's right. Like, this guy is painted to be the enemy, but Sari's a 9-year-old, and I don't think a 9-year-old is capable of running a company that basically produces all electronics for, like, I don't know, the whole world maybe even, but definitely the entire city of Detroit.
Yeah, what is this, ancient Egypt?
I know, right? Nepotism at its finest here. The Elite Guard comes to Earth, and immediately there's a bit of a culture shock going on. The only really one that seems like they're enjoying themselves in any way is Jazz. And before I continue on, I must say, Jazz, I think he's competing with Prowl for being my new favorite character, because he's just got that, he's also a cyber ninja trained in the art of, I believe they said metallicato, okay? So don't quote me on that, especially not the pronunciation, but we now have 2 cyber ninjas where before we had 1, and this cyber ninja fights with like cyber nunchucks, and they're freaking awesome. So, you know, if Prowl was awesome, Prowl and Jazz together are even more awesome. But like, sort of going back, I went on a bit of a tangent there. The Elite Guard, all 3 of them, show up, and it's sort of looking like they're a little bit prejudiced against organics, especially Sentinel Prime. Although with Sentinel Prime, based on what we've seen with his relationship with organics and what happened with Elita 1, is kind of understandable, but they seem to think that organics can contaminate them and possibly like actually harm them in a way. So they set up a barrier. Sari can't get through. They're contaminating the Autobots, and then they're like, what happened here, guys? Something definitely went weird. And so the Autobots are like, well, we actually had a massive battle with Megatron, and the Allspark is destroyed. Sorry, brah. And understandably, that doesn't quite go over well with everyone. So they naturally do not believe that basically a bunch of scrubs, like a bunch of Space Bridge technicians and an Elite Guard washout, defeated like the ultimate Dark Lord Megatron. Like, he's not a Dark Lord, but you know what I mean. So there's a bit of skepticism. So Ultra Magus, sort of being the leader that he is, he's like, well, show us the site of battle and we'll see about your story. We'll see about confirming your story. So as all this is going down, you will remember that the Allspark sort of dispersed in a way. And I mentioned in the last episode that we're probably looking at an Inuyasha style plotline where they're gonna be hunting for shards of this, like, you know, magical object. I was right, completely right. They are in fact going to be searching for shards of the Allspark. It's if you've ever seen Inuyasha, that's basically the plot right there.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. Snailed it. Wait, snailed it. But anyways, snail. He's tired of me. He's so tired of me.
I don't know this person.
So, probably one of the better parts of the episode, actually. Well, okay, I can't even see better parts of the episode because this episode was just jam-packed with like new things that we haven't seen before, from characters to new scenarios, new situations. But we see Megatron, and he's basically saying like, okay, well, we sort of got our butt spanked on Earth a little bit, but I've got bigger plans than Earth. What I really want is Cybertron. I want to go back to Cybertron and presumably take it over, I guess. So by doing, like, he was basically saying that in the Great War, they had two things that led to their disadvantage, and one of them was space bridge technology. I can't remember what the other one was actually, but one of them was definitely space bridge technology. So he's like, I now have the schematics for a space bridge technology, but the schematics are incomplete. And so what he's doing is he's like, well, we've got this master of reverse engineering right here, Professor Sumdac, who they're keeping in a little enclosed area with his little computers and stuff.
I want to know if they know to feed him.
Yeah, right? That's interesting. Like, can you imagine Lugnut going grocery shopping for Professor Sumdac? I mean, picture that scenario in your mind. Just hold that thought in your mind and just let it bring you joy in your life, okay? If I can do nothing else for you today, let that thought be something that you can laugh at, because which one of them does the shopping? Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. But anyways, so, yes, they're basically like, we have a master of reverse engineering here, so let him reverse engineer this. And Professor Sumdac's like, that's not my field, guys. Like, I don't know what to do. But of course they don't listen to him. So basically they now have Professor Sumdac, who is trying to create space bridge technology for them, which is actually, I'm sort of noticing in prior things that, well, not prior, but other sort of iterations of Transformers, they're almost flipping it on their head with Transformers Animated, because in Transformers Prime, it was the Decepticons alone that actually had space bridge technology, and in Transformers Animated, it's sort of the other way around. Even though I know Transformers Animated came before Prime, it's just sort of interesting that disparity in technology, because definitely in Animated, it seems like the Autobots are the ones that have all the advantages, all the technologies, and the Decepticons are, in other circumstances, they might almost be like freedom fighters in a way, you know? And I'm certain that's how they see themselves. But in, say, Prime, it was the Decepticons with all the advantageous technology and the Autobots that were really the scrappy underdogs. So it's almost a little bit difficult to have your primary protagonist being the sort of almighty leaders of the galaxy, because it actually, a lot of the Autobots that we're seeing, they're not being painted in a great light, you know what I mean? So it's going to be interesting to see how they go from here, because it seems like they're really high on their own horses a little bit, and maybe they've gotten a little bit complacent. I'm speculating here. So back to the plot at hand. We then find out that an Allspark shard got into one of Sumdac Industries' assembly line plants, and now robots are going crazy, and presumably there's a battle and the Autobots win, and then they basically find the Allspark shard and confirm to Ultra Magus that yes, indeed, the Allspark was here and the Allspark was sort of dispersed, and the episode kind of well, it doesn't end on that note. Actually, it ends on a really interesting note, but I'll get to that. One other bit here that I couldn't quite fit into this whole narrative thing was they actually went to go visit the Dinobots briefly. And the Dinobots sort of come out and they're doing their usual intimidation tactics, and Sentinel Prime is all like, I won't be intimidated by lesser life forms, whatever. And then the Dinobots transform and they've all got their flaming weapons and stuff, and Sentinel Prime's like, oops, didn't know, sorry, blah, you know? And Ultra Magus, okay. Ultra Magus has this hammer, right? And it looked like a ceremonial hammer until they went to Dinobot Island, and he sort of called upon him the power of Thor, because the clouds went dark. Like, he basically created a storm and lightning came down and struck his hammer and basically like created a big old light show. And I'm talking Ryan over here, I'm like, did he just freaking summon the power of Thor? And you were all like, I think so. And so yeah, Ultra Magnus is wielding Mjolnir. It's kind of interesting.
Don't tell me what I know.
I'll tell you what you know. You don't know anything that I say you don't know. Urgh.
This is what I have to deal with.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a shrew.
Divas.
I will be editing this out. So,
No, you won't.
don't tell me what I know. Basically, I can't think of anything else too much to talk about with what went down in this episode, except for it was awesome, and the new characters are great, particularly Jazz. It's brought a whole new dynamic to what we now know of Transformers Animated. It looks like the scope of the show is going to get bigger. So great beginning to season 2 so far. I'm like really much more intrigued now than I have been in prior episodes. So I really hope they continue down this route. But one thing I do want to talk about is at the very end, Sari is talking to one of the people on the board, and they're like, well, the board unanimously decided that we don't want you anymore, and they made me CEO. And she's all like, what? Like, you can't do this. I'm a Sumdac. Like, this is my father's company, blah, 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 right? And the guy's like, interesting story about that. We couldn't actually find any record of you. No birth certificate, no social security number, I believe you guys call it in the US. Yeah, social security number? Yes. Anyways, we call it social insurance number. Anyways, Canada, we're Canadian. So anyways, yeah, basically there is no record of Sari Sumdac being born or being Isaac Sumdac's daughter or anything. So the episode basically ends where Sari is now sort of adrift. And that sort of brings up a mystery, which sort of ties into what we saw last episode with the double helix. If you haven't actually watched this and you don't know what this all means, I will not tell you. I'll let it be a surprise, but for those of you that do know, kind of interesting. Once again, like, all these little pieces are starting to fall into place. So, great, fantastic episode. What a way to kick off season 2. I'm super excited to see where they go from here. And yeah, watch it, totally watch it. So until next time, goodbye.